Let's first zoom back to see the whole sequence. You can do that by just clicking this little button, which is the home button all the way down here in the right-hand corner. I click that and we'll zoom back to see the full extent of our timeline. Let me also unlock my audio before I go any further. And again, this is all just a workflow, how you want to work. I am done with my rough cut at this point, okay? So I don't need to see my source view. I just want one player to focus on my sequence. So I could, of course, tap to the side over here on the right and choose player, or I could have used the hotkey of Alt-1. So now we just have one player. And I can obviously close my folders. We can also hide our media library if we need to. Down here in the lower left corner, we can hold this out. You can see all the different options we have for this. The one that I want to choose is hidden, and the hotkey is the 1 and the left arrow key. So I hold 1, I hit left arrow key, I hide it. I continue holding 1 and hit left arrow key. It's going to bring it back. But I'm going to hide it for right now because I don't need to see it. I want to focus on my creative editing now. Now, a critical part of working in your sequence and being efficient is being able to zoom in and out on your clips, your selections, and zoom out and pan around. So let's take a quick look at some of the hotkeys for doing exactly that. I've already showed you down on our horizontal scroll bar, we can click and drag, which is going to zoom us in and out. I love this. I do this all the time. You can also do that over on our vertical scroll bar. So if I do the same thing, I drag on a horizontal level, we can zoom in and out on that way too. But then, as I showed you before, we've got this little button down here, which is called the home key. And just so you know, the hotkey for that is Shift-Z. That's going to zoom out so you can see the entire sequence length. But you got the little arrow right there. If you click on that, you're going to get the flyout, and you're going to see you have some other options, such as resize height, fit to width, fit selection. We'll talk about selections in depth in a second, but perfect example, I hold the Shift key and I select a couple clips here, a couple segments. I come over and I choose that option, or we hold Option Shift Z and you'll zoom into those selected clips. Now, another thing to understand, the home hotkey of Shift Z and Option Shift Z are toggles between two different zoom levels, meaning right now, I am looking at the zoomed in factor because I did zoom into selected. If I hold Shift Option Z again, I'm going to zoom out to the last zoom level I was at prior to going into that selection. For example, let me zoom in a little bit, okay? Now if I hold Shift Option Z, I zoom into the selection, Shift Option Z, I zoom back to that last zoom level I had. And the same is true for our Shift Z. So if I hit Shift Z, I zoom out to see everything. I hit Shift Z, I zoom back to that prior zoom level. You can always use your Command, minus, and plus to zoom in. So hold Command, plus, zoom in. And I like the fact that you just hold it, you'll continuously zoom in. Same with minus. I can repeatedly click on the minus while holding the command, or just hold Command and minus, and it's going to zoom back as far as it possibly can. You can zoom way back to a certain point where that's pretty much useless. Shift Z, zoom back to the full extent. Manually zooming in, just like your viewer, your players, and so on. Option Command, I get my magnifying glass, my zoom, and I can click and zoom in. And the interesting part of this is not going to zoom in and out based on where your positioner is, which is what happens when you use your horizontal scroll bar. If I click and drag vertically up and down, you'll notice that I'm zooming in to the location of my positioner. If I hold Option Command and I click, I'm going to zoom in and out based on where I'm clicking. You want to pan. Let's say we're zoomed in really tight. Of course, we can use the scroll bar. That's what you're probably going to do 90% of the time. But just for reference, just like in your player, it's Control Command and you can pan around, okay? Now, I'm going to say you're going to use this 90% of the time, if you will. Shift Z, zoom back, and let's deselect everything. Okay, there's a good point. Let's talk about deselecting and selecting your different clips. Of course, we can just click on a clip and it's selected. Pretty straightforward. I can hold Command and I can click and select multiple segments that are not right next to each other, or you use Shift key as I just did a second ago and you select multiple clips that are in sequence order. If you want to select all, it's Command A. Everything will be selected, including the gap, as you'll notice. You want to deselect everything. You have a couple different ways. If you click in an empty area above your layers or below the audio layer, you're going to deselect everything. But but let me go and select a couple clips here. The hotkey to deselect all is Command Shift A. That will deselect everything. So once again, Command A selects everything, Command Shift A deselects everything. And of course, if I want to select with a marquee, a region area, I can start by clicking in an empty area and draw a marquee like this. And when I release it, any clip that falls inside the marquee will then be selected. Notice the entire audio clip was selected because, again, it's not like I'm selecting just a section. I'm selecting any clips that fall within that marquee. If you want to select just a specific section or frames and so on, let me hold Command Shift A to deselect everything. Then I can hold the Command key. Then however long or the distance I drag the positioner is going to create a selection. Notice that this selection method will select individual frames and not the entire segment. All right, so those are your hotkeys and different methods of selecting elements inside of your timeline. Shift Z, Command Shift A. Okay.